About drug dealers. Yeah, actually. There's a lot inspiring by drug dealers. But maybe not what you think I'm going to say, because I'm not talking about their product. I'm actually a little appalled by their product, because it basically feeds on depression and insecurity and fear and unhappiness and people who don't like themselves for whatever reason or don't like their situation. That's not what inspires me by drug dealers. What inspires me by drug dealers is the talent. It proves that we have talent. We, African Americans, Latinos, people of color, those who unfortunately find drug dealing to be a career path at some point in their lives. Let me tell you something about drug dealers. They're immoral. The business is immoral. It's unethical. It's dishonest. It's troubling to the soul. It's there's no retirement plan if that's the business you're in. It has no long life. But one thing drug dealers are not is dumb. They're very smart. They understand import, export, finance, marketing, wholesale, retail, customer service, security, territory, logistics. These guys and ladies, unfortunately, are natural entrepreneurs. They have natural hustle. They have a payroll. They have a market share. They have inventory. They've got territories, supply and demand. I mean, it's a legit business. That's not legit. Okay. And before we go on, so it proves that we can fashion a business plan. We can be disciplined. We can work hard. We can deliver, we can grow a business, an enterprise. Unfortunately, it's bad role models. Unfortunately, it's a bad business. Unfortunately, it's a bad product. Unfortunately, it destroys versus builds. But that's all we had. For so many of us, that's all we had. And the guys who made it out, who then turned that into a legit business, whether it was using that money to mainstream into grocery stores or liquor stores, or whether it was going into becoming a rapper or whatever it is actually quite impressive. And, before we start judging folks, I'm going to tell you, these drug dealers and gangsters, by the way, I think a drug dealer is an illegitimate entrepreneur, and a gang leader is a frustrated union organizer. I think it just shows how much talent we have, and what would happen if this was legitimate. What would happen if these were positive, if they had positive role models? Because you model what you see. If you grew up in a neighborhood and all you see in your neighborhood are rap stars, athletes, and drug dealers, why is anybody surprised that you grew up wanting to be a rap star, an athlete, or a drug dealer? It makes common sense. You model what you see. What if we gave them something different to see? Let me give you two examples of something different to see and how people turned out different. NASCAR. NASCAR has corporate logos. NASCAR has millions and millions and millions of dollars per team in backers. It's $1 billion industry. The TV rights alone are worth billions. It's one of the biggest sports in the world. But where did NASCAR come from? Where did that wealth come from? It came from moonshine running. Illegal activity in the Appalachian Mountains, right? These are poor whites, struggling families who are running from the police and selling an illegal product called illegal product called moonshine, right? And they realized, the guys who are doing this realized that was not sustainable, right? They realized that was not a business that was going to last, very much like drug dealing. They realized there was no retirement plan, but they realized they were actually good at running from the police. They're actually good at driving. So how do you turn that into something legitimate? Well, they started taking their cars down the beach and running them on the beach and doing some organized races. Then they did it on a dirt track, and one thing led to another. And voila, you have this thing that was born called NASCAR. And NASCAR today, if you look at the families that are NASCAR families, you go back 5-6 generations, you'll find moonshine runners. Rainbows after storms. You cannot have a rainbow without a storm first. Sometimes something positive, sometimes something negative. Last example, Steve Jobs. That's right, I said Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is the product of he's a Syrian immigrant. He was the son of a Syrian immigrant. And he was sort of passed around. And you can read his story, so I won't go into the details, but he was passed around. He wasn't selected, he was passed around. And it was the Jobs family sort of lucked up in getting him as an adopted child. But if Steve Jobs grew up in the ghetto, he probably would have become a drug dealer. He was just that brilliantly talented. But he grew up in Silicon Valley, and luckily his neighbor down the street was this brilliant technician that helped him co-found Apple. He was in an environment where his mentors were positives and his energy thrived. There's just so many examples of that. The question is, how many Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey's and whoever else Janice Bryant Howard's and whoever it is you admire, how many of those are in these underserved neighborhoods who could have changed the world, become job creators, created businesses that employed tens of thousands of people and created legitimate wealth, who ended up being drug dealers and gang members? We can reimagine our world. We can reimagine our communities. We can reimagine ourselves. And we can think now about all the talent, the potential locked in, trapped in the untapped opportunity of somebody we call a drug dealer, and reimagine everything. If you're coming out of the penal system, you're probably not getting the job at some corporate fancy place because you have a record, but you can become an entrepreneur. And these guys have natural talent. Now let's chew on that for a minute. I'm out. John Hope Bryant.